saved you. Thomas is a really useful tank engine. Whenever anyone is in trouble, Thomas is always there to help. And because Thomas helps, deliveries are made on time without confusion and delay. One day, Thomas was at Maithwaite Station. The Fat Controller arrived on board Percy. "Thomas, I need you to collect a very important passenger. He's a fireman and a hero. He rescued Lady Hatt's cat from a tree." "A hero?" "Now we're going to give him a medal." Thomas puffed away to collect the fireman. He was very excited. He was going to meet a real hero. On the way, Thomas saw lots of children at the bus stop. They were excited too. "We're going to see the fireman. Bertie, the bus is taking us to the medal ceremony." Up ahead, Thomas saw a water tower through the trees. The water tower was starting to wobble. Thomas saw Duck was right next to it. "Oh no, the water tower's going to fall on Duck. I must rescue him." Thomas blew his whistle loudly. "Quick, Duck, move now!" Duck puffed quickly forward as the water tower crashed to the ground. "I rescued you." "No, you didn't. Rocky was putting the water tower on my flatbed, and now it's smashed." Thomas hadn't seen Rocky. Rocky had been hidden behind the trees. "I'm sorry, but I don't have time to help you. I have to collect the fireman. He's a hero." Later, Thomas saw a tree. It had fallen onto the tracks. "That looks dangerous," thought Thomas. "I must go and tell the signalman." Thomas backed up to the signal box. "There's a tree on the line. The engines must take another track." The signalman changed the points. Just then, Harvey raced towards the junction. He changed tracks and puffed down the other line. Harvey was surprised. Thomas was very pleased with himself. "I rescued Harvey," Thomas thought proudly. "Now I'm a hero." Thomas chuffed on to collect the fireman. He saw Donald and Douglas stuck behind the fallen tree. "I hope Harvey gets here soon." "Aye, we can't go anywhere until he moves this tree." Thomas knew he'd made a mistake. "Oh no, I made Harvey take the other track. I'm not a hero at all. We need Harvey." "I'm sorry, but I don't have time to find Harvey. I have to collect the fireman. He's a hero." Then Thomas saw Toby. Smoke and steam billowed from Toby's axles. Toby's broken down on Gordon's express line. "Oh no, here comes Gordon. I have to rescue Toby." So Thomas puffed quickly back to the points. He changed over onto the express line. Thomas buffered up behind Toby and shunted him as fast as he could. "Ooh, help!" "Don't worry, Toby." Thomas shunted Toby off the express line and into a siding. Gordon chuffed past. He didn't see Toby. "I rescued you." "No, you didn't. Gordon was bringing an engineer to fix me." Thomas knew he'd made another mistake. "I haven't rescued anyone. I'm not a hero. And now the fireman won't get to the medal ceremony on time." Thomas felt terrible. Just then, Percy puffed up. Percy, will you go and pick up the fireman for me? Percy was very pleased. You'll have to hurry. The medal ceremony starts soon. So Percy raced away. Thomas knew what he had to do now. Thomas collected the engineer from Gordon and took him to fix Toby. Then Thomas found Harvey. He took Harvey to move the fallen tree. Harvey soon cleared the track. Thomas puffed sadly back to Tidmouth. Then he saw Bertie the bus. The children were standing around him. What's the matter? I'm stuck in the mud. Now I can't take the children to the medal ceremony. Shall I take the children for you? Yes, please. So all the children climbed on board Annie and Clarabel, and Thomas puffed away. Thomas arrived at the medal ceremony just in time. The Fat Controller and Lady Hatt gave the fireman his medal. The children were very happy. You're a hero. And you're our hero, Thomas. Thomas the hero beamed from buffer to buffer. The party surprise. In the hills of Sodor, it was time for the Thin Controller's winter holiday party. The party was held at his house. All the children looked forward to it. Mr. Percival and his family lived near the engine depot, so all the narrow gauge engines could enjoy the party too. It was the day of the party and Freddie was working with Colin the crane. They were very good friends. Freddie was excited. This party will be the biggest party ever. Then Mr. Percival arrived. All this cargo must be loaded before the party. Yes, sir, you can rely on us. I must visit Mountain Village Station. I will be back in time for Freddie to take me to the party. Yes, sir. Freddie told Colin all about the party. There'll be decorations, presents, and a big tree covered in lights. Freddie was excited. Colin wasn't. I've never been to a party. Colin was fixed in one place. He couldn't move from the siding. We never have parties at the wharf. Then Freddie had an idea. Maybe this year they could have the party at the wharf. It would be a surprise party for Colin, he thought cheerily. Freddie had to find Mr. Percival. He wanted to ask him if they could have the party at the wharf. I have to go and collect another flatbed. And Freddie raced away. Freddie saw Mr. Percival cycling away. Then he saw Peter Sam. Peter Sam was pulling flatbeds full of presents and coloured lights. They must be for the party, Freddie huffed to himself. I have to stop Peter Sam taking them to Mr. Percival's house. So Freddie didn't chuff after Mr. Percival. He raced after Peter Sam instead. Peter Sam, stop, stop! The party is now at the wharf. Peter Sam was surprised. It will be a surprise party for Colin. I'll take your flatbeds. Will you tell the other engines? All right, Freddie. And Peter Sam raced away. Freddie shunted the flatbeds to Colin. Leave these flatbeds until I come back. Colin was puzzled, but he still had lots to do, so he carried on working. Now I must find Mr. Percival, Freddie thought, and he raced away. On his way, Freddie met Rusty. There was something long and pointy on his flatbed. It's the tree for the party. The party is now at the wharf. Rusty was surprised. I'll take your tree. Will you tell the other engines? All right, Freddie. and Rusty raced quickly away. Freddie puffed and huffed to Colin. "Leave this flatbed until I come back." Colin was puzzled, but he still had lots of other work to do. And Freddie raced away. It was getting late, and Freddie still hadn't asked Mr. Percival if they could have the party at the wharf. At last, Freddie puffed up to Mountain Village Station, but Mr. Percival wasn't there. "Mr. Percival's already gone back to the wharf." "Oh no, I must puff back as quickly as I can." At the wharf, the flatbeds were still waiting to be unloaded. Mr. Percival was cross. "Please, unload these at once." Freddie had told Colin to wait for him, but Colin didn't want to get Freddie into trouble. "Yes, sir." Then Mr. Percival went to look for Freddie. Soon, Freddie puffed up to Colin. "I waited for you, but Mr. Percival told me to finish the job. It's all done now." He was very pleased. Freddie looked down at the canal. He wasn't pleased at all. The lights, presents and the tree were floating away on a barge. The children would soon arrive at Mr. Percival's house, and there was nothing there for the party. And there was nothing at the wharf either. "Now no one will have a party, and I still haven't found Mr. Percival," Freddie huffed to himself. He felt terrible. "I must stop the barge." Then Freddie saw Mr. Percival. He knew what he had to do. Freddie chuffed over to see Mr. Percival. "Where have you been?" Freddie told him all about his idea to have the party at the wharf. "It was a surprise for Colin, sir. Colin has never been to a party." Mr. Percival thought having the party at the wharf was a very good idea. "But you should have asked me first." "Ah, yes, sir. If I work quickly, I can still put everything right." "All right, Freddie, but hurry now." Freddie raced to catch up with the barge. He called out to the bargeman, "Stop! Please turn round and go back to Colin." "All right, Freddie." Freddie steamed back to Colin. He told Colin all about the party. "I wanted to have a surprise party for you." "For me?" Colin was delighted and surprised. Soon Colin was unloading everything for the party. Now Freddie felt very happy. He steamed away to Mr. Percival's house. Freddie whistled to the children. "The party is now at the wharf." Soon the children were on board, and they whooshed away. All the other engines were waiting at the wharf, even Thomas. Presents were piled high, the tree was covered in lights, and so was Colin. "What a wonderful party. Thank you, Freddie." Freddie was delighted. All the engines whistled and tooted. The children cheered and cheered. It was their best winter holiday party. Excellent Emily. It was autumn on the island of Sodor. There had been a terrible storm. Lots of tracks were blocked, and lots of engines had broken down. But Emily made it to Brendam Docks with her load. "Well done. You're the only engine to arrive on time. You are excellent, Emily." That made Emily very proud. Excellent Emily, she thought. I like that. The Fat Controller had a very important job for Emily. "Jeremy cannot land at the airport, and my mother is on board. The storm has blown some metal tanks across the runway. You must collect Trevor from Farmer McCall's. Take him to the airport so that he can clear the runway. Then Jeremy can land." Oh, yes, sir. Excellent Emily can do it. Then Murdoch puffed alongside Emily. I'm going to Farmer McCall's too. Lots of lines are flooded. Take the Wellsworth track. I'm not going on that track. It's much quicker to go through the forest. I'm excellent Emily. I can make it through. So Emily puffed through the forest. But soon she was up to her axles in water. Nothing will stop me. Excellent Emily will find a way through. So she puffed on through the water. It was hard work. At last, Emily chuffed out of the flood. But now she was late. Thomas was waiting at the junction. There's a fallen tree. It's blocking the tracks. Harvey's coming to clear it. I'm excellent Emily. I don't need Harvey to clear the tracks for me. And she puffed proudly away. Emily chuffed up to the fallen tree. I'll easily push this out of my way, she huffed to herself. Emily pushed as hard as she could, but the tree didn't roll out of the way. It stayed in front of Emily. Now Emily had to push the tree up a hill. It was very hard work, and Emily was getting later and later. At last, Emily came to the top of the hill. The tree rolled away, and Emily raced down the other side. Emily met Duck at a junction. Trevor's waiting for you. Don't worry, I'll be there soon. Some of the tracks ahead are very muddy. If you get stuck in the mud, it's going to take you even longer. I'm excellent Emily, and I know which tracks to choose. Duck was worried. Emily raced through the villages. She rattled through the valleys. I'm nearly there, Emily thought. Emily steamed round the final bend and straight into a big puddle of mud. I'll puff through this, thought Emily. Then the track started to sink. Emily was stuck. She didn't feel like excellent Emily anymore. Oh no, now I'll never get Trevor to the airport. Further up the track, Emily saw Murdoch. Murdoch's already there, she thought to herself. I should have listened to Murdoch. I should have taken the Wellsworth track. Now she needed Murdoch's help. Emily blew her whistle as loud as she could. Murdoch puffed over. I'm very sorry, Murdoch. You were right. Please, will you pull me out of the mud? Of course, Emily. Soon Murdoch was chained up to Emily. With a huff and a chuff, he pulled her out of the mud. Thank you so much, Murdoch. Emily puffed up to Farmer McCall's. Trevor was waiting. I must take you to the airport right away, Trevor. Emily pumped her pistons. Then she stopped. I know what I have to do, Emily thought. Murdoch, which tracks would you take to the airport? The tracks on Gordon's Hill are still being cleared. You should take the valley route instead. Thank you, Murdoch. And she puffed away. Emily puffed happily along the valley track. Murdoch was right, she thought. Then Emily saw a telegraph pole across the track in front of her. She was going to push it out of the way. Then she remembered what Thomas had said. I'd better wait for Harvey, she huffed to herself. Soon Harvey cleared the track and Emily was on her way again. Emily pulled up at a junction. Ahead, she saw a shortcut to the airport. That track's muddy. Emily remembered what Duck had said about muddy tracks. I don't want to get stuck again, thought Emily. I'll take the longer track. Soon Emily arrived at the airport. Trevor cleared the runway just in time. Jeremy landed smoothly and safely. The Fat Controller was delighted to see his mother. Well done, excellent Emily. You made it in time. That's because everyone helped me, sir. All of your engines are excellent engines. Tobys' special surprise. Toby is a very cheerful steam tram. He isn't as big or as strong as some of the steam engines, but he's always happy to help and willing to work. One spring morning, Toby chuffed cheerfully into Titmuth's sheds. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. The Fat Controller had arrived. Henry, you are to take the mare to the Scottish castle. Emily, you are to take a party of school children to Black Lock. And Thomas, you must take me to Great Waterton. Toby waited. He hoped he would be given a special job too. And you, Toby, are to go to your shed and wait. Toby was disappointed. His boiler barely bubbled. This afternoon, you must pick up workmen and take them to Great Waterton. Yes, sir. Toby watched his friends steam off to their special jobs. Waiting at his shed wasn't a special job at all. He puffed sadly away. Toby wondered why the other engines had been given specials and he hadn't. I know why, he thought. All the other engines have found something special. Emily found the seals at Black Lock. Henry found the flagpole for the Scottish castle. And Thomas found Great Waterton. If I find something, the Fat Controller will give me a special as well. I've plenty of time before I pick up the workmen. Toby puffed off to find something special. Toby steamed into the hills. Toby looked and looked, but he could see nothing special at all. Suddenly, Toby stopped. He could see a big red bird in a very tall tree. I found something special, he huffed to himself. Toby puffed closer. Now he could see it wasn't a big red bird. It was an old Wellington boot. Oh dear, thought Toby. That's not special. And he puffed on. Toby steamed deeper into the hills and away from Great Waterton. Suddenly, he stopped. Toby could see something glistening and glittering in the afternoon sun. It's a treasure chest, thought Toby excitedly. I've found something very special. Toby puffed closer. Now he could see it wasn't a treasure chest at all. It was a rusty truck of old tin cans. Oh dear, that's not special. Then he heard a whistle. It was Whiff. He had come to take the truck to the rubbish yards. Hello, Toby. Why are you looking at old tin cans? Toby felt very silly. He chuffed quickly away. Toby puffed sadly to a junction. Thomas was on his way back to Titmuth. Hello, Toby. The Fat Controller's waiting for you at Great Waterton. Bust my buffers. He had spent too much time looking for something special. Now he was late, so Toby steamed quickly away. Toby huffed to the halt. The workmen boarded Henrietta, and they puffed quickly away. Toby knew he had to hurry to get to Great Waterton. Then Toby saw something bright shining beside the track. Maybe this is special. Now the Fat Controller won't be cross with me, Toby thought. But it wasn't something special. It was an old piece of metal stuck in the bushes. Then there was trouble. Toby had puffed so far looking for something special, he had run out of coal. Toby felt terrible. He hadn't found anything special, he hadn't delivered the workman, and he hadn't been a really useful steam tram. Toby had to do something quickly. It was getting late. Toby asked the workmen to hit the piece of metal as hard as they could with their tools. "And I will ring my bell as loudly as I can. Someone at Great Waterton is sure to hear us and come to our rescue." The Fat Controller was waiting at Great Waterton Station. He had heard the banging and Toby's bell ringing. "Come along, Whiff. It sounds as though Toby's in trouble." The Fat Controller arrived on Whiff. "Toby, what are you doing here?" Toby felt very silly. "I'm sorry, sir. I ran out of coal because I wanted to find something special. I thought then you would think that I am as special as the other engines." "But Toby, you are special." "But only when I'm really useful. I know that now." "You'll always be special. You are the oldest steam tram on Sodor." Toby felt very happy. "Now, let's fetch Rocky and get that old metal to the smelters." Rocky quickly lifted the metal out of the bushes. Toby gasped, and so did the Fat Controller. On the other side of the metal was a picture of a steam tram. It looked just like Toby. "Toby, you have found the sign for the Great Waterton tram shed." Toby's pistons popped with pride. Now that's special. And Toby couldn't have felt happier to be a steam tram.